In the quiet village of Alicia, there existed a tale passed down through generations about a forbidden fruit hidden deep in the forest. The elders warned of its powers, said to grant unimaginable knowledge and eternal life to anyone brave enough to consume it. Yet, its promise came with a dark price. No one had ever dared to seek it, until one fateful day when a young woman named Amina, consumed by curiosity, overheard the legend while playing with children at the village square. Amina was no ordinary girl. Her unquenchable thirst for knowledge drove her to seek the fruit, not for power, but for a greater understanding of the world beyond the village's borders. The elders' warnings echoed in her mind as she ventured into the forest alone. The trees whispered ancient secrets, and the deeper she went, the more the air felt thick with anticipation. Every step took her closer to something both wondrous and terrifying, something she couldn't ignore. The forbidden fruit was within her reach, but the question lingered: would she dare? Amina wandered deeper into the dense forest, where the shadows grew long and the sunlight barely pierced through the thick canopy above. As she walked, she began to feel an eerie pull, as though the very forest was guiding her to the forbidden tree. The wind whispered through the leaves, carrying faint voices of those who had come before her. "Do not take it," they seemed to say, but her resolve hardened. She was no longer just a girl in a village. She was a seeker of truths, and the world outside had always felt too small for her restless soul. Just as her feet brushed against the undergrowth, a clearing opened before her. At the center stood a tree unlike any she had ever seen. Its bark shimmered with an otherworldly glow, and its fruit, gleaming with an almost hypnotic allure, hung from its branches, waiting. The scent in the air was intoxicating, thick with sweetness and promise. Amina's heart raced as she approached, every part of her screaming to touch the fruit, to taste it, to finally understand. But she hesitated. Was it too late to turn back? The moment Amina's fingers brushed the skin of the fruit, the world seemed to shift. The air crackled with energy, and the trees around her groaned as though they were waking from a long slumber. The fruit felt warm in her hands, almost as if it were alive. Her heart pounded in her chest as she slowly brought it to her lips. As she bit into the soft flesh, a flood of sensations overwhelmed her, visions, emotions, and knowledge that were not her own. She saw the rise and fall of empires, the birth of stars, and the deepest corners of the human soul. In that moment, she became both everything and nothing. But the sweetness of the fruit quickly turned bitter in her mouth, and a sharp pain shot through her head. A voice echoed in her mind, deep and ancient: "You have tasted the fruit, and now the price must be paid." Amina dropped the fruit, her body trembling. What had she done? The consequences were unfolding, and there was no turning back. Amina staggered back, her mind reeling from the flood of visions that had consumed her. She had expected enlightenment, but instead, she felt a deep sense of loss, as if something precious had been taken from her. The world around her no longer felt real. It was as though she was seeing it through the eyes of someone else. Her once vibrant connection to the village and the land was fading, replaced by a cold emptiness. The voice in her head continued, unrelenting: "You have taken what was not meant for you. Your thirst for knowledge has condemned you to wander without peace." Amina fell to her knees, her heart breaking. She had thought the fruit would give her clarity, but it had stolen her soul. With every passing moment, the consequences of her actions grew clearer. There was no undoing what had been done. In the days that followed, Amina struggled to regain her sense of self. The village, once a comforting haven, now seemed alien to her. She could hear the thoughts of others as though they were her own, and with every passing day, the weight of the knowledge she had gained pressed heavier upon her. The elders were silent when they saw her. They knew she had fallen victim to the forbidden fruit. But their silence was not a comfort. They had seen it before, young seekers who had tasted the fruit and lost themselves in the process. One evening, as Amina wandered through the village, she felt a shadow follow her, a cold presence that seemed to cling to her every step. It was the price she had paid for the fruit, a darkness that would never leave her. Her once bright future now seemed shrouded in doom, and the very people she had sought to protect now avoided her gaze. One night, as Amina sat alone in the forest, the voices returned, this time clearer, more urgent. They called to her from the depths of the trees, beckoning her to return to the place where it all began. There, at the heart of the forest, she might find a way to rid herself of the curse she had unknowingly embraced. With no other choice, Amina set off towards the tree again, desperate for a solution to the torment that had become her existence. The forest, though familiar, now seemed menacing, as though it was alive, watching her every move. The deeper she ventured, the more the darkness around her seemed to press in. Yet, she pressed on, driven by the hope that perhaps there was still a way to reverse the damage she had caused. The voices whispered in her ears, urging her to hurry, to make it before it was too late. The forbidden fruit's grip on her life was tightening, and only by returning to its source could she hope to find peace. As Amina reached the clearing where the tree stood, she felt an overwhelming presence, an ancient, almost maternal force. The tree, once a source of temptation, now seemed to hum with power, its branches twisting like skeletal hands reaching out to claim her. A low, rumbling voice echoed from the depths of the tree. It was a voice she knew, one she had heard in the moments before she had taken the fruit. "You seek redemption, but redemption comes with a price," the tree intoned. Amina stood frozen, unable to speak, her body trembling. The fruit had not merely given her knowledge, it had bound her to the forest, to the very essence of the land. In order to free herself, she would have to offer something far greater than her regrets. The tree's voice grew louder, its presence more intense. "You will face a trial of the soul, Amina. Only through sacrifice can you find peace." The air around her thickened, and the ground trembled as if the earth itself was preparing for what was to come. Amina was filled with dread, but she knew there was no other way. She had sought knowledge, and now she had to face the consequences. The trial began with a rush of memories, loved ones lost, moments of happiness fleeting like wisps of smoke. She was forced to relive the pain of every decision, every step that had led her to this moment. The darkness within her grew stronger, threatening to consume her entirely. She had to fight, to hold on to what little light was left. The voices urged her to let go, but Amina's will remained unbroken. She would not let the fruit claim her completely. After what seemed like an eternity, the darkness receded, leaving Amina standing before the tree, broken yet resolute. "You have proven your strength," the tree whispered, "but the final offering remains." In that moment, Amina understood. To free herself, she had to give up the very thing she had sought, the knowledge she had gained. She had to sacrifice the power that had come at such a cost. With a heavy heart, Amina reached deep into herself and began to let go of the visions, the knowledge, the voices that had haunted her. As each fragment of her mind slipped away, she felt lighter, as though the weight of the world had been lifted from her shoulders. The tree's dark presence began to fade, and the sky above cleared, the stars twinkling brightly once again. When Amina returned to the village, it was as though no time had passed at all. The people looked at her with a mixture of curiosity and pity, but there was something different in their eyes, a quiet understanding. They had known the cost of seeking the forbidden fruit, but Amina had returned not as a woman cursed, but as someone who had learned the true meaning of wisdom. Her journey had not ended with the fruit, nor had it ended with the trial. Amina had discovered that knowledge was not a gift to be taken, but a truth to be earned. She had paid the price for her desire, but in doing so, she had come to understand the balance between wisdom and humility. Her soul was finally at peace, and she could return to the life she had once known, no longer burdened by the fruit's dark power. Amina's return to the village was not a celebration, but a quiet homecoming. She had changed, and so had the village. She had learned that true wisdom came not from knowing everything, but from understanding the limits of what one could know. The villagers watched her closely, noticing how she no longer sought to impress with her knowledge, but simply lived in harmony with those around her. She began to share her lessons not through grand speeches or declarations, but in the small, everyday acts of kindness that made the world a better place. The elders, once wary of her ambition, now looked at her with respect. Amina had found her place, not as a seeker of forbidden knowledge, but as a keeper of the simple truths that held the world together. Though Amina had returned to her people, the journey had not ended. She continued to carry the weight of the forbidden fruit's knowledge, but now she held it with care, using it only when necessary. The future, once a mystery she sought to solve, had become something she now accepted as unknown. The beauty of life lay in its uncertainty, in the balance between knowing and not knowing. She looked to the horizon with new eyes, understanding that life was not about reaching some distant goal but about walking the path with open eyes and an open heart. And though the fruit had left its mark on her, Amina had learned to live with it, embracing the complexity of existence without succumbing to its dangers. As the years passed, Amina became a figure of wisdom in the village, not because of the knowledge she had gained, but because of the humility she had earned through her trials. Her story became a lesson to those who sought to understand the world. The forbidden fruit remained a distant memory, its allure dimming as time passed. The villagers no longer feared it, for they had learned that true power came not from what one could take, but from what one could give. Amina's legacy lived on, not in the tales of the forbidden fruit, but in the way she lived her life. Simple, yet profound, always seeking, yet always content with what she had. As Amina grew older, the memories of her encounter with the forbidden fruit faded, replaced by the rhythms of daily life. The world outside the village continued to turn, and new generations of seekers came and went. But the lessons of the past endured. Amina had shown them that knowledge was not a treasure to be hoarded, but a gift to be shared. The villagers carried her wisdom with them, and the village flourished in ways that no one had ever imagined. Amina passed away quietly in her sleep, her legacy etched into the hearts of those she had touched. The tree in the forest, once a symbol of temptation, stood silent in the distance, its fruit long gone. The story of the forbidden fruit had come to an end, but its lesson would live on forever. Many years later, children in the village would gather around the elders and ask about the tale of the forbidden fruit. The elders would speak softly, recounting the story not as a warning, but as a guide to living a life of balance. And so the circle completed, as one generation taught the next, and the lessons of the past became the foundation for a brighter future. The forbidden fruit no longer haunted the village. It had become a symbol of the wisdom gained from choosing humility over ambition, understanding over desire. And as long as the village stood, its people would remember Amina's journey, knowing that the true power of life lay not in the fruit of temptation, but in the choices we make. The end. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, share, subscribe for more stories.